Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel SkillUp Tutorials one lesson at a time. In today's video, I am going to explain about statement. In JavaScript, a statement is an instruction that interpreter executes. Not every line in the program comes under statement. Only the statements which will be like declaring variables, making decisions, or looping through data. Comments does not comes under statement. Okay, then what is meant by conditional statements? Conditional statements are used to perform different actions based on different conditions. Now let's see. There are four types in conditional statement. The first one is if. Executes the block of code if the condition is true. Okay, then if else. Runs on block if it is true. If it is not true, then else block will be executed. Then what is meant by else if ladder? It checks all the conditions. If any condition is true, then that block of code will be executed. If no condition is true, then the else block will be executed. Then what is meant by switch? Switch code to execute from multiple cases. Multiple cases will be there according to the condition met. Then the block of code will be executed. You can understand it more in execution part. Then what is meant by looping statements? Loops execute code multiple times based on the code. For example, if you don't know the fixed number of iterations, then we go for while. If you know the fixed number of iterations, then we go for. Then what is meant by do while? Do while is same as like while, but the main difference is do while will execute at least one time before checking the condition. And the next one is control flow statements. These are used to control how loops or functions executes. The first one is break. The break exits the loop when a condition is met. And continue. Skips the current iteration and moves to the next. The main difference between break and continue is it will exit from the whole loop, but it will just skips the current iteration only and moves to the next line. That means next instruction or statement. Then return. Return will exist from a function and returns a value. Then what are exception handling statements? These handles the errors gracefully to prevent program crashes. The first one is try. In try block, we mostly use it to write the code, suspicious code. That means if we don't know whether we get error or not. So at that point of time, we use this. In execution, I will explain it more. And the next one is catch. If exception raises, then this block will be executed. We can write multiple catch blocks. Based on the exception raised, the particular block is executed. And last one is finally. Without considering the exceptions, if the exception is raised or not, the finally block should be executed and will be executed also. And then last one is throw. Throw is known as user-defined exception. For example, in some situations, we don't have the particular exception in predefined, then we need to write the user-defined exception. Then you can go for throw. Okay, now let's go for the execution so that you will understand more. Okay, now let's start with if statement. How can we use if? For example, let n equal to 10. Now let's say if n equal to 10. Or else you can keep n is greater than 10. You can do like this also as you wish, or greater than or equal to 10. Then now let's say console.log of print SkillUp. This is just an example. So that now let's save it and run it. SkillUp is printed. And now let's see the else statement also. How else statement will be worked if else. Now let's say here we have written this, and now let's say console dot log of tutorials. You can write anything based on your condition. Okay, now let's save it and run it. The number is 10. So it is greater than skill. For example, let's take 9 and let's try once again so that it's showing tutorials. Now let's say the next one is else if ladder. Else if ladder. Now let's see. These are comments. Else if ladder. Okay. Now let's take else if n equal to 0. Then execute this statement like console.log of new channel. Okay. Now let's say subscribe to my channel. Okay, now let's save it and try it. Let's give here the value as 0. Now let's see what happens. Yes, subscribe to my channel. For example, if I give 8, same as like before. Taking much time. Let's try once again. Yeah, now you can see tutorials is printed. Okay. Now let's see about switch case. Okay. For example, let us take let x equal to 451 or else 231. This is just an example for understanding. Okay, now let's see switch off. Let's say x mod 10. X mod 10 means the remainder will be printed. Okay, now let's write the case. Here, this keyword case is used to declare a block. Okay, now let's see. For example, if it is the value one case and then any value or any variable, you can use it here. If it is met, then this block will be executed. Here you no need to write any curly braces. It will automatically takes it as block. And now let's say console.log of, let's print 1. Okay. Now you need to write this break. As I said before, what is meant by break? Break will exist from the loop. Okay. Next case of 2. You no need to bother about this break. I will explain it later after writing this code. Console.log of 2. 2 is printed. And after writing the code, you need to write break in every case. Okay. Case of 3. And console.log of 3. If the last value is 3, then this will be printed. Okay, then break. And we also have one more keyword called default. Default means if any of the case is not executed, then this default block will be executed. Now let's say console.log of. Now let's say no value. Okay, now let's try and execute this. 1 is printed because the last value is 1. For example, 453. Now let's save it and see. 3 is printed. For example, 455, let's say. That means no case is found. Then default block is executed. Now let's see. No value. Okay. I think you understand about this. Now let's see what happens if we remove the break. For example, let's say 451 I given. Then what happens? Now the case 1 is matched. Then this will be printed. Here break statement was not there. What if break statement is there? If break statement is there, then this will be exited from the switch block. So here not there. Then what happens? Then case 2 code directly executed without checking the case expression. Okay. And next this will also be executed. Now let's see what happens. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3 and default block also executed. If you miss the break, for example, now let's say 2, then what will be printed? 1 not will be printed because first it will come to here. This is not correct. Then it's go to the next case to check. This is right. Okay. After the case, how many cases are there and the default all will be executed from here onwards. Okay. Now let's see. 2, 3. 1 is not printed because this is false and it came to 2 and from here remaining all will be executed. This is a small thing you need to remember about this. Okay. Let's write here. Break. So don't forget this break and semicolon also. This is mandatory. Mandatory means not mandatory. If you want to print like this, you can do. Okay. Now let's go to looping statements. Looping. Now let's say first for loop. Okay. Next for. Okay. Let's write let. Mostly we use I comma j in for loops. You can use any variable. I and j are not mandatory variables. You can use anything. But mostly we use I and j. Now let's say I less than 5. I plus plus. I will explain this. Here, this first one is initialization part. Here you need to initialize any value. And the next one is condition part. This will check the condition. And this is iteration part. I will explain how this will be executed. Console.log of I. Okay. First, when we start the execution of for loop, first the interpreter comes here and checks, initializes the value as I. Here I will explain. I is 0. Okay. Now then it comes to checks the value. I less than 5. That means 0 is less than 5 or not. It will check. Yes, it is true. Then what it does is it will directly executes the code inside the curly braces. This will be executed. After that, it goes to here and iterates the value. That means it changes the value. It may be increase or decrease like plus plus or minus minus, or else you can keep I equal to I plus 1 also you can do like this, or directly you can do like this. This will increment the value. Now I value will become 2. Then it only at the first time this initialization part will be executed. Now I became 1. Now it checks the condition that 1 is less than 5. Is it true or false? If it is true, then the code will be executed. Here you can write minus minus also. Minus minus means I value will be, for example, if I write minus minus, the I value is 0, then it becomes minus 1. Like this, it will be executed. Okay, now let's see the execution. As you can see here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 are printed. I hope you understand about this for loop. If you want me to do another video in more detail about for loop, please mention in comments. I will do. Okay, now let's go to while loop. While. Now let's say n is greater than 5. Here, for example, here we know the number of iterations. That means 5 iterations you need to perform. That means so that you can use this. Here I don't know the iterations based on the conditions. It should be run it. Okay, now let's say for example here what we taken n is, let's say 0. N is 0 and n, now let's say 8. 8 is better, no? So that now let's say 8. 8 is greater than 5. Then this will be executed. Now let's say console.log of print n value. Okay, now let's say n minus minus. N minus means you can write n equal to n minus 1 also you can write in simpler way. That means for first n becomes 8 and then 8 will be printed and n will be decremented to 7 and it checks whether 7 is greater than 5, and if it is right 7 will be printed and 6 and then 5. 5 is not greater than 5, 5 value will not be printed, 8 7 6 will be printed. Okay, now let's save it and run it. Let's see the output. As you can see here, up to here 4 value is printed as we see before, and here 876 is printed. Now let's see do while how it will be worked. Now let's write it here. Let's take n equal to 8, and because here the value becomes 6, so from here onwards 6 will be continued. So I want to take n value is 8, so I will take n value as 8 for understanding purpose. Now let's say take do. Do means do while means in do block we write the code which has to be executed, and after do we will write the while and condition what we written here, n greater than 5, and don't forget to keep semicolon, and the executable code will be written in this do block. Okay, now let's write same. Now let's take this and copy and paste it here, same as like before. But what is the difference between while and do while is, without checking any condition, one time the do block will be executed. After that the condition will be checked. First the value is 8. 8 will be printed. Now let's see. 8 will be printed here and 8 will be decremented to 7. It will check 7 is greater than 5. Yes, it's true. And it's come to here and 7 will be printed and it will be decremented to 6. 6 is greater than 5. Yes. Then it goes here and 6 will be printed and 6 will be decremented to 5. 5 is greater than 5. It is wrong. So it will end here and it does not go to do block. Okay, like this it will be executed. Now let's save it and run it and see the output. Yeah, as you can see here, this is while output and this is do while output. Like this we can define while and do while. Okay, now let's see break, continue, and other one is return. Okay, firstly what is meant by break? Break will, for example, if we get the statement break, then it will definitely comes out of the loop immediately. And then what is meant by continue? Continue will skips the current iteration and moves to the next iteration. Then what is meant by return? For as we saw in last video, in function we used this return. Return will gets out of the function and returns any value. Okay, now let's see the execution part. Okay, now let's say first let's take break. Let's take an example for let I equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. Then in natural terms what happens? Console.log of I. In natural terms 1 2 3 4 5 will be printed. 1 2 3 4 5 will be printed. For example, if I try to keep if I equal to 3, then break. If only we write one statement in any block, then no need to keep curly braces. Okay, now let's see the execution. Save it and run it. It is running. Yes, now you can see here, after getting 1 2 3 and become 3, and break means it exists from the loop. From this for loop it was get exited. Okay, then now let's see continue. As I said before, continue will just skip the iteration. Okay, now let's copy this code so that, yeah, now let's write continue here. And now let's paste it. Instead of break, let's keep continue. Then now let's see what happens. Save it and run it. Yeah, it's running. Yeah, before execution is 1 2 3. Now then what happens? Yeah, as you can see here, 1 2 3 4 5 all are printed because it just skips this iteration and moves to the next iteration. That means there is no statement after this, so that it happens like this. Now let's keep this here, so we will get the correct output. Correct means expected output. Now let's save it and run it. Now you will see 1 2 3, no, 1 2 4 and 5. Okay, now let's see the output. As you can see here, 1 2, if I equal to 3 is met, then continue means this skips this iteration. Okay, this iteration was skipped and 4 5 are printed. After skipping this iteration, if any iteration, that means any statement is written here, then it goes to here. Okay, like this will be executed. Okay, now let's see about return. Okay, return statement, how it will be worked. If you saw my old videos like function videos, you can find this return statement there. Now let's define a function fun. I'm not taking any parameters because I want to explain about return statement, so I will just return hello. Okay, now let's call this function fun of. Okay, I'm not sending any parameters. Now let's say let k equal to, okay, now let's print this k, console dot log of k. Now let's save it and execute it. Okay, as you can see here this is the function definition. I defined a function and I return hello string from here, and I called this function and I printed the return value here. Okay, now let's see about exception handling statements, that is try, catch and finally. In description I told all these, and try means if we have any suspected code, then you can keep in this try block. Okay, try. Now let's say let x equal to 10 and let y equal to 0, or else now let's take 5. Okay, now let z equal to x by y. Now let's do like this, just an example. And now let me print this console.log of z. Okay, here the suspected code will be written. Okay, and after try we need to write catch block. Catch is like I am taking error, any variable you can take, because I am taking error, like you can also take but we are discussing about error, right? So I am keeping error as a variable. Okay, now let's say if I get any error, it should print console.log of let's say error occurred. Okay, now let's say e dot message. E dot message error dot message means this is the error means variable, as we all know that. Dot message means what error we got, that message will be displayed here. Okay, now the last one is finally. As I said before, finally block will be executed if we get error or if we don't get error. Okay, now let's say console.log of SkillUp tutorials. I'm just printing this to understand. And now let's say wait and run it. Okay, now let's see here 10 by no error, we don't get any error, so this message was not displayed, catch was not executed, and finally block was executed. Now let's say let us take y value as 0, then what happens, we don't get any error and the output will be infinity. Okay, now let's save it and run it. As you can see here, we don't get any error message was not displayed. We got output as infinity. For example, let's say f equal to g. Here g variable is not defined, then we will get an error that is not defined, variable was not defined. Now let's see how we will get. As you can see, error occurred. This is I written in these codes and g is not defined. Like this we will get the error. I hope you understand all these concepts. This is the end of the video. If you have any queries, please comment below. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.